Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. I'm your host, Holly. I'm here with Frank. How you doing?
Hi, good. I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
For now.
I'm enjoying it, and it seems like we're getting good feedback, and so hopefully the word will start to spread that this is a podcast for everyone.
Right.
And that it is not only a place to laugh and learn, but also a place to be somber as well. When it comes to all things funeral.
Yeah, seriously. A good place to reflect on that, a space for it.
Yeah. Hopefully people will find comfort and solace in that.
Right. I think it's great. Even if they don't, keep coming back.
No, they'll keep coming back. Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, we are. We actually are. And so we're watching numbers, and it's great. For the first couple of days that it's been posted, it's been great to have that amount of people starting to actually find it and take time to listen to it. So thank you.
It's great.
It's a big deal for us. This is our first opportunity to try something like this, and so we're just going to see how it goes. And
yeah, we're amateurs, but we're glad that you're tolerating us enough to keep listening.
I agree with that too. So
yep. But how have you been?
Good. I can't complain too much. I haven't had the best of days, but no. But it's okay. It's been good. I always work through it, and you just find new ways of tempering the storm.
Yes, new ways of coping and working through it.
Correct.
Yep, that's true with everything.
It's dark outside, and it's only like 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. But
can I just tell you how much I hate daylight savings time?
I knew that would trigger you, Holly. So that's okay.
It makes me angrier than anything. I truly think than anything.
What if you were just kept on the regulars on the same time like we are in Arizona? Would you be better off with that, or would
I would?
Okay.
I would be better with that.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Because the people in Arizona understand that the farmers, whatever they're doing, they don't need it anymore.
They adjust their clock.
Yeah, they adjust their clocks.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, farmers, but I would love to hear, you know what? If we have any farmers that listen, I would love to hear your thoughts on daylight savings time. If it helps you, I will tolerate it for your sake. But it just makes me furious. Oh my gosh. I don't even care that I get extra sleep. It makes me so angry that I don't even appreciate the sleep.
Well, let me tell you this. In the fall, when I used to work as a security guard in California, this was the only time I hated daylight savings time, because we would have to work an extra hour. Because you fall back 12 midnight, you get off at 2 a.m. So at 12 midnight, it falls back to 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. So you now work an additional hour. And so, yeah.
I didn't even think of the people working night shifts.
Yeah. That's what I hated most about daylight savings time. But spring ahead, then we lost an hour. So we were already an hour into our shift. So that was good.
So you didn't mind that. But let me tell you, would you have rather it just stayed the same?
I would. I kind of like it here. I don't have to worry about time change. Now when I worry about time change is if I'm talking to a child, one of my children outside the state. Hold it, what time is it there now? And then oh my gosh, it's too late to call them. God, I just hate that. So anyway, by the time I can call them, they're already in bed or getting ready for bed. Grandkids are already in bed. There's no way of reaching them. So I don't
Grandkids
know.
go to bed at like 4 o'clock Arizona time when they're in the
Yeah,
East
that's correct.
Coast. So,
Yes,
oh
that's
my
correct.
gosh, so annoying. But I
Hmm.
guess we can't do anything about time zones. So I'll save my anger for daylight savings.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Hate, 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 hate.
Hate is such a strong word, Holly.
I know.
Such a strong word.
I know. And I mean it.
Okay, great.
So I guess that's how my week's been.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of getting right into the episode, but now let's all say it together since we know what time it is. It's time to be frank.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, so it's very interesting. The story that I want to share with you this afternoon is one that I only share it because in my 40 plus years, I've never seen it done. And I have never seen it done since. So
Okay.
the only reason I'm sharing it is because of that reason. And I think
Because
that
it's
some
so
people,
unique.
it's unique. And I think it's
Mhm.
important for people to understand that right now, funerals are being catered to the individual's life. So if a person liked to ride bikes, for instance, there would be an opportunity to bring in a bicycle and
Yeah.
set it next to the casket,
Right.
so that people understood what that person enjoyed doing. If they enjoyed hiking, then I don't know all the equipment, the names of the equipment, but
Their
you
hiking
can,
poles,
yeah, the poles,
the
the
boots.
cleats, yeah, whatever
Mhm.
they are. And so all of those things can be displayed. So that is something that you need to just kind of keep that in mind as we talk about what this experience brought. And I want you to think of this phrase: before you go, we have one more stop.
Okay.
Before you go, we have one more stop. So the story goes like this. We had a extremely busy morning on the morning that I received this phone call. And I didn't know and when the phone call came in, the lady on the opposite end said, "Is this ABC Mortuary?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she goes, "We've just had a death and we'd like you to come and bring her into your care." And I said, "Okay, fine." And I looked at the clock and it was 8 o'clock. We had to be on the road for a service by 8:30. And I just thought,
Mhm.
there's no way.
There's no
And
way.
we had two services going on between where we had to leave between 8 and 9:15. So
Mhm.
that meant 6 cars leaving. And we had just the secretary going to be left in the mortuary. And then she said this: "If it's not too much of an inconvenience, we would like for you to come and to our facility between 12 and 1."
Oh.
Sure.
Well, that works out well.
Yeah, that did work out well. And as soon as I heard that, I said, "Absolutely, we can. We'll be there." So we went on ahead and had our services. Everything was great. And now the facility was about 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour from the mortuary in which I worked. And so I remembered rushing back, and I thought that I would try and have one of my helpers go to the facility to actually bring her into our care. And again, that's called a first call, right? We've talked about that in the past.
Right.
But I had all the information on the desk, and he wasn't feeling well, the guy that I wanted to go. And so I just thought, okay, I'll go. And so I grabbed the paper and I got into a van, and I headed towards this nursing home or assisted living facility. And as I pulled in, it was a first time I'd ever been there. And it was a very unique style architecture building. It almost looked like well, I don't want to go into too much detail because then people in California will know which one I'm talking about. And I'm trying to make this just as plain as possible.
Well, you just gave away that it was in California.
Well, that's okay. There's tons of them in California.
Yeah, but
So,
no one would have known.
Okay, Holly. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, back to the story.
So, anyways.
So anyway, so I walked in and immediately was met by a young lady who told me her name. And it turns out that as we were talking, she and I were in the same nursing class together.
Oh, how random.
Yeah, it's very random. And I said, "What? You graduated when?" And she told me, and I said, "From where?" And she told me, and I said, we're in the same class.
And to just
And
quickly divert, you'll have to explain that before you became a mortician.
yeah, I did work in the nursing field, and my specialty was geriatrics, which is the elderly people. And so I love going to nursing facilities, and that sometimes I'm disgusted by nursing facilities by what I see when
How
I go
they're
in.
treated.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, going back to the story, we had a nice little conversation, and I said, I'm here to pick up Mrs. So-and-so. Oh my gosh, great. You're right on time. Come with me. So we walked down this long hallway and entered the room, and there in this bed was Mrs. I'll call her Jones, Mrs. Jones. And so I put the gurney up alongside, and I moved her from the bed position onto the gurney, and made sure that she was snug in the blanket or the sheet, which I had with me, and then tightened her in with the seat belts that are on the gurney. Then I placed a little cover over the top of her. And as I was leaving, I leave the gurney in the room, always leave it in the room, so I can step back out and sign what paperwork needs to be signed, so that she's not out in the hallway. She's just in the room. Kind of no one knows that she's passed away. And
right. Not a spectacle.
Correct. So I just go ahead and leave her in the room, sign my paperwork, then work my way back into the room. And the nurse follows me right behind me. Usually I say, thank you. And that's it. Fine. Okay, fine. I'll go back to my work. You go do what you need to do. But she followed me, and she said, before you go, we have one more stop. So I'm thinking, what in the world is she talking about? So I was just following her, and she said, oh, please bring Mrs. Jones.
Oh, all have one more stop.
Correct. So I went to the head end of the gurney, and I just started wheeling her, and I was following behind this nurse, and we opened this double door. And we had walked for a little while, and I'm not joking when I say maybe 30, 45 seconds. We were walking and finally walked into this door, and I was totally taken by surprise, because as we walked into the door, it wasn't just a double door, it was a door into their dining area. And
that's lunchtime.
So let me before we go on with the story, I have to tell you this. When individuals pass away, hospitals don't like to admit that people die in their hospitals. Nursing homes don't like to admit that people die in the nursing homes.
Right.
No,
that makes sense.
No one likes to admit that death occurs there. So when we go to a hospital, we go to the dock area. That's where the morgue is located. That's usually where we go, and we bring the person out of the hospital where no one sees it. They put covers.
Very hidden.
They have tables or I call them mobility carts that they place individuals on, that they actually have them covered, so no one in the hospital no one's the wiser. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you wouldn't know what you were looking at.
You know what? In fact, once I was on a first call with you, and I think we were going to pick up at a dock in the hospital. It must have been with Scott, but we circled the hospital probably 3 or 4 times because we couldn't find the dock. We could not find where we were supposed to go.
Yeah, sometimes
they really do hide it.
Yeah. And so the nursing homes are the same way. They go down the hallway and they close the doors of everyone in the room. If you're going to pass by their room, they make sure the doors are closed so that no one sees or hears the gurney wheeling past their door. So anyway, that's why I was taken back. I was a little bit surprised, because as I walked in there and recognized that I was now in the middle, not in the middle yet, I was still at the fringe of this dining area. And this nurse that was with me grabbed the back of that gurney. So I'm on one end, she's on the other. Now she's physically holding the gurney, and she's wheeling it towards the center of this dining area.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world are we doing? What are we doing here?
Mrs. Jones wants one last meal.
I guess that's one way of looking at it, Holly, but it's not the right way. Just so you know. So here we are. We're stopped in the middle of the dining room, and everyone just stops and looks at this. Now, me, Mrs. Jones, the nurse, and behind me, I hear someone tap a microphone. Attention residents, we just want you to know that Mrs. Jones has passed away. We would like to take this opportunity to allow anyone that would like to see her before she leaves this facility to do so.
Wow,
At
so
that
they held an
very
impromptu viewing.
kind of, yes, not kind of. That's what they did. And
Right.
while I was sitting there thinking, hold it, what is happening here? You know, because it was totally off the rails. It was something that I would never have guessed that it was going to happen.
Right.
And so as all of a sudden I hear someone talking or clearing their throat behind me, so I look over my right hand or over my right shoulder, and I hear this.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved
And so as that song is being sung, I'm thinking to myself, what in the world am I witnessing here, and why in the world aren't more people doing this? Because this is fantastic in the sense that here it makes perfect sense to me. I look in my mind, I look back now and I think to myself, that makes perfect sense, because all that is really going to show up at that facility at the viewing or whatever else service they might want to have is just general family.
Right.
And yet these folks are probably her friends. So
yeah,
as I
see her every
continued,
day.
yeah, as I continued listening to the music, I became very silent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became engrossed in what was actually transpiring. As the music ended, individuals continued to follow and come up to the gurney and say things like this. Oh, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to miss playing cards with you.
Mm.
Oh, Mrs. Jones, you were such a good puzzle builder or something like that. It went putting puzzle pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Mrs. Jones, who's going to comb my hair?
Oh.
And so you knew that Mrs. Jones was loved by the people that were actually in that care facility.
Right.
So after everyone had a viewing, everyone that wanted to, that came by the actual gurney, the administrator then said, is there anyone that would like to say something to the group about Mrs. Jones? And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I was I would be very upset if I was in a time crunch right now where I had to make sure that the person was picked up, taken back to the mortuary. So if I had a service that I had to go to, luckily for me, I did not. And so I was just as calm as could be. And I just continued listening to what was being said and what was being done. And as the service, I'll call it a service, as that service continued, I was just in awe about what I was witnessing and thought to myself, man, if I ran a funeral or if I ran a nursing home, that would be the best way ever to do it. And so anyway, the service finally ended with them raising their cups of water as a final toast to Mrs. Jones.
Oh my gosh.
And then they said, "Here, here, we live forever."
Oh.
And I just thought to myself, holy moly, what is going on in this facility where individuals are now either there of one common belief, or are they actually to the point where they're actually interacting with the staff where they're repetitively being told this life is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I got as we were leaving. And I looked at the CEO as I was leaving, and I assumed she was a CEO. She was the only one really dressed nice.
Mm-hmm.
She was also the one that sang Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
So I said to her, I said, I want to thank you because for letting me be a part of this, because I've never experienced anything like this. And she says, we always ask individuals to come to our facility between 12 and 1 when someone passes away. If they pass away in the night, we still wait and ask them to come between 12 and 1 because that's the time when everybody is congregating in the dining area where they can say their final goodbyes to the individual that's left or that has passed away. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that is so, so very nice. And I said, I cannot, having a background of working with geriatrics, I cannot tell you what type of respect I actually see these individuals for doing. And she says, do you know why we do it? And I said, no, not really. And she goes, Mrs. Jones, let's take Mrs. Jones, for example. She has been in our facility for 10 years.
Wow.
10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And she said it again, 10 years. And she said, do you think she's made any friends here? I said, I heard them.
Obviously,
I know she did. And she goes, that's why most of these patients will never be able to leave the facility to go see her in another location. So to me, it's important that they have one last opportunity to see them in this environment where they were actually interacting one with another before they leave the facility. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is one of the best examples that I could hear or see of service.
Yeah.
So when you look at an individual that has actually passed away, what acts of service can you actually offer them? And when people, I'm going to ask you, Holly, what kind of service could you offer someone that's passed away?
I think it depends on your role of what you're doing after they've passed away. But obviously, I mean, sharing their story, keeping their memory alive. In your position, treating them with care if they come into your care, and respect, dignity, and just, generally treating them how if they were watching the entire thing, they'd be happy.
So from the funeral side, forgetting everything that we've just talked about or that we've shared the story with, on the funeral side, the biggest act of service that anyone can do for a family, in my estimation, is to do someone's hair, to do their nails, to dress them, and just have that hands-on experience with them. And I know that scares a lot of people, or a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, don't bring that up because my mom died 2 years ago and I didn't want anything to do with it. But you know what, there's something comforting. And even if you're in the room and someone else, so for instance, if I've been asked to dress someone, I always invite the family to be in the room when I dress.
Yes.
Because there is a feeling of love, comfort, and of security that's right there. And there's a little bit of a knowledge that you're blessed with, knowing that he or she in a state of peace. And that goes a long way. And if you don't have that experience, and plus I like it too, because if, for instance, it breaks the ice when a loved one has passed away and you have the opportunity to step into the room to be with them without the commotion of other people.
Right.
Because
and it's not about the service anymore. It's not about getting the food there, the catering there for the other people that are going to be there. It's just about you and your deceased loved one. Right.
And so when you as family have the opportunity to just be there and be with family, either linking arms, hugging each other, laughing, joking, crying, there's something to be said about you as a family being able to be there with her on your own, as opposed to someone pinching your shoulder, you're pinching your elbow saying, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm so sorry about your mother. Don't you want to be focused on the deceased for just a moment?
Right.
And that's the way I always present it to families. And I'll tell you that when families take advantage of the opportunity to actually be with me during a viewing or me be with them while they're dressing, sometimes there's a prayer said. It's whatever the family wants, but whatever makes them feel comfortable with regards to the individual and them being in the same room. That is a huge plus. Can I tell you something? About 4 years, and I'd never had gone back to that facility. And I don't know
really,
why.
It was the only one.
That was the only time I went. However, I did speak to someone else and said, hey, have you ever been to a removal at the facility on such and such? And they go, oh, is that the place where they make you take the individual through the lunch area? And I said, yes. He goes, silliest thing ever I've been to. And I thought,
you're kidding.
No. And that's what I'm thinking when I think to myself. So for some, And this is a perfect example. For some, you can see value, and where there's value, others tend to tarnish it
Right.
or look at it and say, well, that was the silliest thing I've ever been to. But
One
for
man's
me
trash
personally, yeah. Oh my gosh.
is another man's treasure.
Holly, we're going to talk. I have a story about one man's trash.
Okay.
And so that's a perfect inroad for the next, not the next episode, but with a couple
And
ones eventually. But I was totally shocked when I said, I looked at him and I said, I rather enjoyed it.
Right.
And he goes, were you in a hurry, Frank? And I said, no. And he goes, well, I was. And I said,
that would change your mindset immediately.
Maybe sometimes we just need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think in general, we need to slow down.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we just need to continue to look up. And I think I love the phrase look up, because with our society the way we are now, with everybody looking down on their phones, and you can see it everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. Everyone is looking down. And I think it's sad because it's kind of deprogrammed us from looking up, looking straight forward, and looking into someone's eye. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's a shame. That's a shame as to what's happened with technology today. However, I will say this. Going back, COVID has taught us something. And I'm going to just mention this briefly because at the beginning we talked about you went to a viewing in person and to a service in person. And then you said you listened and watched something on Zoom. Now, this may make some of you laugh, but when I was in the funeral industry, at the beginning of the funeral industry, there was no such thing as Zoom. There was no such thing as Holly. Were you just laughing?
Excuse me.
Holly. So there was no such thing as Zoom. There was no such thing as a teleconference, at least that I can remember. And I just remember, and when COVID
Hold on, was there such a thing as a phone call? Did that exist?
Yes, Holly, it did. So the one thing that I always have remembered now because of COVID, everyone kept saying to me, is there any way that we can have a Zoom meeting? Now I became very scared because I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And the other thing that scared me was, oh, well, we can just do it on Facebook Live. So what's a Facebook Live? What's a Facebook Live? See, even now I would question it. And if I have to do a Zoom meeting, which we are set up to do, but if I have to do it, I'd rather pay someone to come in and do it because I don't feel confident enough to run the make sure that it's set up.
Yeah, it's running correctly.
Yeah, if you're the host, you're bringing in the people at the right time, you're muting people and still so they aren't able to speak into, oh my God.
Right.
It's too much for me. I just don't, I can do the Zoom, but I would rather have a family member say, and then when they call me and say, hey, what's the link? What do you mean, what's the link? So I don't know. There's supposed to be to be a link that's a permanent link, and I still don't know what it is.
I think maybe that's one of the things where maybe you call one of your kids
Ghostbusters and
have them do it for you.
That's right. I could call one of the kids and just have them say, hey, what do you think? Have you got maybe an hour?
Is that for me?
So anyway, that's my story for this week. And I want you to just think next time someone passes away, I just want you to remember there's no limit to what you can do when it comes to a viewing. You may get some roadblocks put in front of you by the funeral director or the funeral counselor. But if you keep pushing, they'll eventually let you do what you want to do, so long as it's not against the law. But and anything you can do to remember the life will be a good thing, because that helps everyone when they come to that service and that viewing to understand that it's a person.
Yeah, this is a person that you're, and I think that's something that I love so much about this story this week is because generally retirement homes are hard places to be in. Just because you can get the sense of, I'll say, impending doom. I don't know if that's a great way to put it, but it's never
you mean assisted living place. Retirements are different. Retirement homes are where you're still able, you go out, you come and go as you want. Assisted living locations,
Yes, assisted living.
Most locations that are assisted living won't let you leave the building without an escort.
Right, right.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
it's just it's not a great atmosphere to be in. And I mean, I can only imagine what a person is thinking when their children are checking them into an assisted living community. And so just the fact, I think there's something to be said that as humans, we create communities wherever we go, no matter what the circumstances, where these people still found solace within each other's friendships, and they were still able to have a community despite being in confines, honestly. And then to be able to share very intimate moments with people
Mhm.
towards the end of their lives is very special. And so just them having that opportunity to share and to express their love and goodbyes to her,
Mhm.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And there, and I didn't mention this, but when the administrator had mentioned that she had passed away, there were gasps in the
Oh,
group as
no.
though they weren't even aware that she had passed
Right.
until that very moment. So you could see that in some of the women's faces, or you could hear it
Mhm.
just in their comments. What? That comment. So
Right.
I thought it was very well done.
Mhm.
And it taught me something immediately, that you're actually looking out for not the survivor. Funerals are for the
Yes.
living. They're not for
Yeah.
the dead. The person's
Right.
already passed away. The living is what it benefits from a funeral. It's
Yeah, and
not the
you
deceased.
ask what service you can do for someone who's deceased.
Mhm.
I think that extends. You need to be looking out for the families immediately affected, because they are the ones ultimately in need of that service. The deceased is in a better place.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. But yeah, there's a huge hole created
Mhm.
from their passing. Hopefully, I'll say.
Yeah. That little ripple effect has started.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone, for listening in to another episode of Coffin Talkin'. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at Coffin Talkin'. But we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
listeners. Bye.